how do I break down the resistance that missionaries people have when it comes to the topic of their need for pastoral care?
Kind of a, how do you care for people who don't care to be cared for?
Or don't think they need it.
Which, this is a sensitive question because I'm one of those people. Hey, welcome back to the show. So glad you're here. This week, I got to talk with a guy named Randy, who is in charge of caring for a lot of missionaries with the organization that my dad started. He's facing a unique challenge in that a lot of these missionaries don't actually want to be cared for. So we got into this conversation of how do you care for somebody who doesn't want care or maybe doesn't see the need for it yet. We all need care at some point. So we had a wonderful discussion about it, some interesting questions, some interesting conversations, and some interesting strategies for caring for folks who don't necessarily feel the need to be cared for. Hey, if you've got your own question, by the way, for this show, I love helping people conquer their mountains. If you've got your own question, go to joelmalm.com/coaching and sign up for the free 30-minute option where we can sit down and talk together for a few minutes about whatever your challenge you're facing and develop some practical steps to move forward into all that God has for you and conquer that mountain you're facing. I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I would love to talk to you soon. Randy, good to have you.
Good to be here.
Randy.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, so I went ahead and brought my dad in on this one because when you sent in your question, I thought Dad would be a good one to help with this.
Sounds
so
good.
Why don't you launch it off and give us your question?
The question is mainly, how do I break down the resistance that missionaries people have when it comes to the topic of their need for pastoral care?
So kind of a, how do you care for people who don't care to be cared for?
Or don't think they need it. Yeah.
Which, this is a sensitive question because I'm one of those people.
Right?
I am not one. I remember when I was serving on the mission field in Latin America and our pastoral care were coming, I'd be like, I don't want them here because I see this guy over here is my pastoral care. My dad is, he's a guy that I go to for everything. So I'm in a unique situation though, but I also recognize there are a lot of missionaries who don't realize they need care until they're picking up the pieces of the burnout
and it's too
or
late.
the sin, whatever it is that's come about. So tell us a little bit about what you do just to give a background on it, and then we'll start with that. Yeah.
My wife and I just recently part of the new team that came out for pastoral care. We do pastoral care for the U.S.-based missionaries for CTEN.
Okay. And CTEN is the organization that this guy over here started, Missionary Nation.
Yeah. That's my.
There he is.
He's
yeah. And so, what has been your heart for pastoral care, Dad?
Well, when we first started Missionary Nation, the idea behind it was to help the ordinary person go. If you've got all the qualifications and been through all the, got all the pedigrees, there are a lot of organizations that will send you on the mission field. But we saw that there were just a lot of ministries that were needed. Just somebody who'll go and dig a ditch at an orphanage and put in wiring and make sure light bulbs work and do things like that. And you don't need a master's in theology or anything like that to do that. But you just need to be willing to work.
Yeah. And how does the pastoral care piece fit in that?
Well, when we sent people out, we realized that a lot of these people just needed somebody to look over their shoulder. They needed pastoral care. I was kind of one that didn't really need it either. But I've kind of noticed that there are kind of those that have this call on ministry in their life, and they're going to be ministering wherever they are. And they know about self-care. And there are a lot who really don't know about self-care, but they want to go help. They want to work. So we wanted to send them out there, but we felt like we shouldn't just throw them in the ocean and see if they swim.
Yeah.
Somebody needed to be there kind of right alongside them and help out. So we started from the very start with us. And then as we grew, we needed other couples to come in and help visit these folks on the field.
And that's what Randy does. So what's the resistance look like that you're getting? Is it like people literally saying, don't call me? Or is it people avoiding your calls? Or what is it?
Well, I think depending on their context and who they are, and particularly their personalities, it varies. It's differently. I mean, for me, it was, I was on a flight from Chad to Istanbul with a friend and former missions pastor. And as we talked, we realized that one of the greatest hindrances in our walk with God was our familiarity with God. It was very easy to tell him his will for our lives. And I think the more we get in that rut, the less we are open to people talking into our lives. One of the things I've learned in going places is that when you go into a fresh place, you have a different perspective than people that are entrenched there, live there every day, and are used to that. Same way when people come to visit us from overseas, they see things differently than we do. And I think it's just having that listening ear to just talk through and process and just visit in a lot of cases. But people just are so busy doing ministry, doing the work of ministry, that we oftentimes just forget about that relational side and the importance of having those friendships and those relationships just as a stress reliever oftentimes.
Yeah. I think about that verse in Ephesians that talks about that fivefold calling where you've got prophets, evangelists, pastors, or shepherds. And it says it's for equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. So that pastoral care, pastoring, shepherding is one of those calls. But a lot of times we go, I think when you've done something a while, you go, well, I don't need somebody to equip me. I'm already doing it. Right. Is that a challenge you're facing?
What is, I think, and it's, who are you to tell me what I'm doing and if I'm doing it well or correct? And I think there's that underlying, at least from my perspective, that's kind of how I feel in the sense of the conversation. It's, what are you doing here? And what are you trying to tell me how to do my job? And we just have to break that down and say, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're just here to see how you are.
Yeah.
I think some of it too is most organizations, when they talk about member care, it means you've done something wrong. And so they feel like, oh, they're coming to check on me. And they're just resistant to that and maybe nervous about it. The boss is coming to look over my shoulder.
Right.
And the stories you hear, they're coming in after the fact.
Right. After the mess has been made, right?
Yeah. Right. I think basically the pushback I've gotten has come different people. The one that said, he wasn't really interested in a lot of contact. I'm learning through the course of the initial conversations that there's a lot more going on there than I could tell or learned ahead of time from reading through a lot of the previous notes. And he's had a really rough year. He's had a lot of turmoil within the organization he came from. He's new to CTEN, so he's still learning a lot of this as well. But then there's been a lot of turmoil just in life and the physical health of he and his wife.
And I think that's wise too. What you're saying is recognizing that if there is resistance, there's probably a backstory.
Yes.
I had a friend who took over an entire denomination's church planting department, and the guy before him had just burned bridges. I mean, burned. So this dude's like, I'm coming in 17 feet underwater here to start with. And I think the wisdom in this is recognizing if there is resistance, there's a reason. And, the purpose was that proverb, the purpose in a man's heart is deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out.
Yeah.
What is the reason for that resistance I'm getting? It sounds like you're doing a good job on that.
And I think that exact verse is one that I ran across, as we were going through this process and talking with Rick and Jenna. I ran across that in my abiding time that I'm like, that's what I need to focus on. Drawing it out, not reacting to it, but responding to the resistance and see why is there resistance there in the first place.
Yeah. Funny you'd bring that up, that passage, because we had a little time of training a couple of weeks ago where I talked to them about that particular passage. And I said, you're going to get water out of a deep well, you need two things. You need a rope and you need a bucket. The bucket has to have an open end. So the one thing is open-ended questions. How do you draw the water? How do you draw that deep purpose out of a man's heart? Open-ended questions. But a bucket's not all you need. The other thing's the rope. The rope is just some silence. Ask those open-ended questions and then wait. And it's awkward for us. We don't like silence. But in that silence, they're allowed to think. They're allowed to process. They're allowed to. And it's amazing once you're silent, even after they give you an answer, if you wait a few seconds, they'll start off again and give you even more.
Yes.
So that's a big key to it. And like, I want to echo what Joel's saying, Randy. It sounds like you're doing a great job.
So in your context, I have a couple of thoughts. Sure. First of all, my general answer is I've learned you don't care for people that don't want to be cared for.
Yeah. You can't rescue somebody. Yeah, you can't rescue somebody who wants to, because pastoral care is a relational thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't force that relationship.
However, you also have the element of a pastor's job is also to, in a way, shepherd.
Correct.
And this is the conflict I've often felt where you said people are asking you, who are you? And in some ways that's a valid question. In some ways that's a dumb question. Because if the missions agency has assigned that role to you, they apparently believe that you have something to offer to those people to, at minimum, be a listening ear or be there to help them pick up the pieces when things fall apart. But as I tell people all the time, and I tell this all the time, and if you're listening and you're like me and you go, I don't want pastoral care, I don't want anybody caring for me. Here's the thing, at some point you're going to need it.
Right.
And if you're only calling out for help when everything is shattered to pieces, it's not going to go that well because, first of all, they don't have any previous relationship to understand how you got to that point. They don't understand where you've come from, where you're going. So you're literally having to do not only backstory, but you're also having to do like damage control and triage and all that. So that's where the relationship is so important. And that's where I found this. Okay, I'm going to pick on a specific group of people. There's these Enneagram 3 Wing 2 types, and they're very achievement driven. But they're also very caring. They really want to care for people. And I find a lot of missionaries are Enneagram 3 Wing 2s. So they're very driven to accomplish things for the Lord, to get the word out, to care for people. But they also have literally no internal regulator, and they just go until they burn out or they fall into some sort of sin. And when that happens, the tragic thing is they're begging for help. And oftentimes they're like, nobody's there for me when I needed help. And you're like, well, you literally cut everybody out up to this point.
Yep.
And so preaching to myself, I have to remind myself that guys like you, you're not there to irritate me, especially because you raise your own support to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you raise your own support to do this. So it's not like this is a paid gig. You believe enough in this to do it. So, have you ever been the guy that hasn't necessarily felt like you needed care?
Sure.
What was your reasoning for that?
It was just the fact that, I was doing fine with my relationship with God, and somebody came up and said, hey, I see something. And my first response was, you're looking at somebody else. But he loved me enough to persist and kind of smack me a little bit lovingly, but just said, look, no, I really do see something. We both agreed that we needed that periodic voice into our life, even if it was just a few select people that we would just have periodic conversations with. And they just were given the freedom to say, hey, if you sense something in my conversation, call it out, speak into my life. But that's kind of the way we want to approach it, is that, look, we're here just to get to know you, discover what God is doing in and through you, and just be here, because you don't buy life insurance after you pass away. You invest in that ahead of time. And just like this relationship, you invest in that ahead of time in case something does happen. But in the meantime, you've just got somebody to just listen to you vent and puke sometimes, and sometimes it's just to come alongside and say, and just remind them, God's got this. Sometimes you don't need the reminder, but at the same time, it's just being there.
And I mean, I think that's one of the challenges is, how do you convince somebody this is out of love for you, not to irritate you?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Any insights, Dad?
Yeah, I'd say we were like you. The first mission agency we were with did not have pastoral care. I mean, it was a new agency. They didn't really have anything. They were just trying to figure out what they were doing themselves. And every now and then the president would come and make a visit, and he'd want to come and see us. And I thought, well, that's great. That's fine. He's the head of the organization that enables me to be here. Just out of respect, I'll be here. If he came or if he didn't come, it didn't make any difference. But that was because we were in a very good community. We were tied in with two churches, a national church and an English-speaking church. We were in a good community of folks we worked with, coworkers and people we served with. So we weren't out there hanging out on our own. And so we had a lot of iron sharpening iron, rubbing up against one another anyway.
Yeah. The verse that comes to mind is Hebrews 13:17. Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls, as those who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you.
Yeah.
What tactics have you been leaning into? Because you're right out the gate in building these relationships with some of these folks have had multiple pastoral care people in the past, and maybe they didn't necessarily get along with them. So in some ways, you come along with some baggage. I think that's a challenge too when you step into a role of caring for people who maybe haven't been listened to in the past or cared for in the past. What are you seeing in terms of that kind of resistance? Like, oh, here's another one.
Let me mention another one, another obstacle that Randy has that most don't. He's caring for our missionaries in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they are in a good community. Hopefully they're in a good church. Hopefully they are surrounded. They're not dealing with, well, some of them still dealing with cultural issues because they're working with refugees and in different communities. But they have a lot less struggles and stresses than many who live overseas, and they can drive across town and get away from it all.
Sure.
Whereas, in many of these in foreign countries, you can't. So he even has you might say a stronger wall to overcome.
Yeah.
In dealing with him. So there you go.
But I think to your question, well, I think it's a combination. I think the first thing I've got to do is just listen to them. When we have Zoom conversations with these first meetings out of the gate, we just say, look, we just want to just give you the floor. You just talk to us and just share whatever you want to about what you're doing, about what God's doing, whatever. We need to hear that first so that hopefully they get a sense that, we're not here to tell them what to do. We're not here to tell them how to do it. We're not here to micromanage them. We just want to hear what is God doing in and through you. And based on the individuals and their context, we're finding it's just a wide variety. It's different every time. One woman we talked to, we are number 7 on her list of pastoral care. And
you mean you're the 7th pastoral care person she's ever had?
Yeah.
That's probably me. I'm probably up in there too. I'm like, man, and another one bites the dust. I'm just waiting for your demise, Randy. No, I'm just kidding.
Some people are just real hard on pastoral care. They wear them out fast, So.
But yet at the same time, it's intimidating because some of these couples they're giants. They have set the bar for care so high, and we kind of joke about it, but that was one of the things that drew us to it. And that challenge was that we had seen and experienced the bar the last 3 years being with CTEN, that the bar and the value of pastoral care was so high. And it was so critical, not only for the organization of CTEN, but more importantly for the life of the missionary and the workers wherever they were at. So we just try to discern where they're coming from, and different personalities will take that kind of relationship different as well.
And I do think, Dad and I have talked about this before on the podcast. I do think there are certain people, and we've kind of concluded it's the people that have that Ephesians calling, where it's the fivefold calling. They're just we all need care.
Yeah.
But there are some people that are a little bit more self-feeder, a little bit more kind of, they don't need as much care. And I think it's those who have been gifted with that grace to do ministry, grace/burden. Right. But part of what comes with that is you're maybe a little more stable on your feet. But even those guys, if we've seen this week, the whole crash and burn of Philip Yancey. Here's a guy who everyone looked to be a thought leader of the faith, and in 8 years he's struggling with this sin behind the scenes. So I want to talk a little bit about that idea of, because a lot of pastors listen to this show, and so when you ask that question, you're like, how do you care for people that don't want to be cared for? I thought, what's so great about that is a general problem for anyone in the care industry. Is if you're constantly trying to, what's that old proverb? Never try to teach a pig to sing. You'll frustrate yourself and the pig.
I don't think it's actually a proverb, but
it's an old proverb. It's not
we'll say it's a Jewish saying or something.
Yeah. But you have that challenge of, how do you force somebody to realize they need care? And I see that as a pastor all the time at our church. Somebody shows up and they're begging for help because they've blown their life to shreds. And I'm like, man, I really want to help you. And then this is what they want too. They want it all on Sunday morning, right after I've spoken between 2 services, and I've got 10 minutes, and they're like, "Hey, care for me now." And then they're like, then that's the people that walk away. They're like, "The church hurt me. The pastor wasn't there for me when I needed him." I'm like, dude, it took you 15 years to screw up your life. We ain't gonna fix it in 10 minutes.
Preaching.
I know that's not very compassionate. I am not a pastoral gifting. I'm more prophetic, but That's an interesting challenge too, is you have people that they want what they want. And in some ways, at some points as caregivers, that's going to be our job. We're just going to have to remember, we're just going to be there to pick up the pieces when people finally realize how badly they need it. But again, what was that book, Nudge, where he basically said there's so many things in life where you can't force someone to want something. So you try and stack the deck in such a way that you win. For example, in this book, Nudge, they talk about how the Dutch were having, that's a weird example, but the Dutch were having all these problems with people peeing on the floor, men peeing on the floor in the Schiphol airport. So they put a little fly in the urinal, and guys started aiming better because they wanted to hit the fly. So we have this challenge in ministry of like figuring out, how do I create salt the oats to where they want it, right?
Part of that process is, it comes back to the relationship, because, as we develop a relationship, we just have to remind them that, look, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here as a resource for you. And then, in the course of the conversation and as the relationship develops, there may be resistance at the beginning, but eventually our prayer is that they realize that we are a resource that they can come to, and we'll be there if something does hit the fan.
Grateful for what you do. And Dad, any closing thoughts on that?
Well, as Randy said, you don't buy life insurance after you die. You don't build your safe harbor when the hurricane's blowing. You've got to prepare it ahead of time, because storms will come into all of our lives. Jesus promised it. You don't even have to worry for it. He said, in this world, you will have difficulties and tribulations.
Yeah.
And the cleanup at the end, the cleanup is oftentimes worse than, the conversations beforehand to prepare the relationship if something happens.
Yeah. So I'll let you close out this segment. What would you say? What's your plea to those who are resisting care?
Just try to learn, some humility as far as, the extent that God went to die on the cross for you. You are valuable. You aren't omniscient. You're not God, and he's not taking applications, like my friend says. We all need somebody at some point in time, and you might as well, get another friend in the process and have somebody else to walk with you through what you're doing.
What if we don't want another friend?
You're a lot more lonely than you need to be.
Oh, ouch. That's good, man. That is good. Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.